August 2012. When we hear about massive financial disasters, we usually expect some grand conspiracy, right? Like a dramatic accounting fraud or maybe a super sophisticated cyber attack by some foreign government. But what we're looking at today in this explainer is a story about something far more unsettling. It's the story of a completely routine, totally invisible software update that almost broke Wall Street. 45 minutes. That is literally all it took. In just 45 minutes, one of Wall Street's absolute biggest, most untouchable trading firms was pushed right to the absolute brink of extinction. And the crazy thing? It was done by their own computers. You see, the incredible speed of modern finance is supposed to be this huge competitive advantage. But on this specific morning, that speed became a weapon that the firm accidentally turned on itself. $460 million. Just evaporated. If you do the math on that 45-minute window, that's over $10 million disappearing every single minute. This rapid-fire meltdown proved that in a financial system completely built for speed, one simple, honest technical mistake can be utterly catastrophic. The losses were eating away at the company's capital so fast, it completely outpaced any human's ability to just reach over and pull the plug. So today, we're doing a full forensic deep dive into the timeline, the tech, and the truly terrifying aftermath of the Knight Capital disaster. We're going to investigate exactly how a tiny, invisible error sitting in a server room translated into one of the most shocking, sudden corporate implosions in all of financial history. Part 1, Wall Street's Need for Speed. Okay, so to really grasp how something this wild could even happen, we first need to understand the environment Knight Capital was operating in. By 2012, financial markets weren't just trading floors with people shouting anymore. They had completely transformed into this digital battleground where mere milliseconds separated the winners from the losers. Knight Capital was what's known as a market maker. They were the essential bridge between buyers and sellers in the U.S. equity markets. Think about it like this. If you wanted to buy a stock, there had to be someone on the other side ready to sell it to you, and vice versa. Knight stood right in the middle to make sure that happened instantly. They weren't just playing in the market. In a lot of ways, they literally were the market. And to do that at scale by 2012, everything was heavily automated. It all relied entirely on high-speed algorithms making decisions in fractions of a second. But here's the catch, right? Speed is totally useless if your systems aren't perfectly controlled. Success depends on absolute precision. In this world, you are 100% dependent on the quality of your code, because even the tiniest flaw can have massive, immediate consequences. And as we're about to see, Knight Capital's code was hiding a very dark secret. Part 2, Waking the Dead Code. So, the true villain of our story actually wasn't some malicious hacker. It was a ghost in the machine. It was this massive failure of basic software hygiene that had just been sitting there totally dormant in their servers for years. Let's trace this back. All the way back in 2005, Knight abandoned a piece of defective code deep inside one of their automated equity routers. But instead of fully deleting this broken code, they just left it there. Fast forward 7 years to late July 2012. Knight was doing a routine update to join a new program at the New York Stock Exchange, but the deployment was done incorrectly. And on the morning of August 1st, that new update acted as a spark that accidentally woke up that dead code from 2005. And because that old code was never actually removed, waking it up created this fatal combination that completely blinded the trading system. It literally prevented the router from realizing when its trades were already completed. Just imagine a robot that's programmed to buy shares until it hits a specific quota, but you've accidentally destroyed its ability to count. It doesn't know when to stop, so it's just going to keep buying and buying and buying endlessly at the speed of light.
Part 3, Millions of Unintended Orders.
So the stage was set, the trap was fully armed, and when the market opened at 9:30 a.m. on August 1st, the fallout was instantaneous. But honestly, here is the absolute most tragic, suspenseful part of this entire investigation. The system actually warned them it was broken. Before the opening bell even rang, an internal system generated 97 automated warning emails, explicitly identifying that router error. 97 warnings. It was a critical window of opportunity to stop the disaster cold, but no one acted on them in time. And once the bell rang, the sheer scale of the automation failure was just staggering. Let's look at the contrast here. Human intention versus machine execution. The firm only wanted to fill a mere 212 customer orders. That's it. But because the system was totally blinded and couldn't recognize that those 212 orders had already been filled, it just kept firing them over and over. In under an hour, it blasted out more than 4 million unintended orders into the open market. The machine was doing something completely divorced from what the humans actually wanted. By the time it was over, this out-of-control system had traded more than 397 million shares. Can you imagine what the trading floor looked like? Inside the company, it was absolute chaos, pure panic. Engineers were frantically scrambling, desperately trying to understand why their normal morning trading had suddenly mutated into a fight for survival. They were practically tearing the place apart looking for the kill switch, while the servers just blindly hummed along, destroying the company second by second. So by the time human intervention finally managed to stop the bleeding, the damage was already done. The firm had accumulated billions of dollars in totally unwanted positions. Because the algorithm was broken, they were essentially buying up shares at inflated prices and immediately selling them back at crushing losses. They torched $460 million in 45 minutes. And for a firm of Knight size, a loss like that isn't just a bad day at the office. It's a death sentence. Part 4. The ultimate cost of failure. Here's the really harsh reality. Eventually stopping that rogue algorithm didn't actually save Knight Capital. It just shifted their nightmare from a technological crisis to an existential financial one. They stopped the computer, sure, but the financial crater it left behind was so massive it was going to swallow the entire company whole. Staring down immediate insolvency, Knight had to basically go cup in hand to a consortium of their Wall Street competitors, begging for a desperate $400 million lifeline just to keep their doors open the next day. And Wall Street is not known for its charity, right? This emergency lifeline came on absolutely brutal terms. It was highly dilutive, meaning it essentially crushed the value of the company for all the existing shareholders. Yeah, they survived the morning, but they basically had to sell their soul just to keep the lights on. They were now completely dependent on outside money, and control over their own destiny was rapidly slipping through their fingers. Of course, publicly, they tried to keep a brave face. CEO Tom Joyce put out statements trying to project total stability to their totally spooked clients and employees. He was thanking their partners and insisting that, hey, we're getting right back to business as usual. He assured the market that all the defective software had been fully scrubbed from their systems. But behind the scenes, the regulators were already circling, and they wanted answers. When the SEC did their postmortem, they found massive systemic compliance failures. And then the regulatory hammer dropped. Knight was hit with a $12 million fine under the market access rule. This was a super strict mandate adopted back in 2010 specifically to prevent this exact type of market disruption. Essentially, Knight was punished because they completely failed to link their execution accounts to automated financial exposure controls. As the SEC pointed out, if you're a broker dealing with this kind of volume, you absolutely have to anticipate what happens if a component breaks. Knight failed to adequately review their own risk controls. They didn't have a way to check if the orders leaving their router actually matched the orders they entered. Worse, the systems they did have couldn't automatically cut off trading when it exceeded their capital thresholds. They were essentially driving a high-speed Formula One car with absolutely no emergency brakes. The domino effect here was just unstoppable. Think about it. In a matter of mere months, this fiercely independent titan of Wall Street turned into a distressed takeover target. And it was all because of one overlooked file from 2005. That single software deployment error didn't just decimate their balance sheet, the complete loss of trust ultimately forced Knight Capital to surrender its independence entirely, getting acquired by late 2012. So, as we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with a pretty chilling realization about modern automated finance. When these wildly complex systems fail at market speed, the catastrophic damage is already done long before human minds can even comprehend that a mistake was made. Knight Capital's collapse is this permanent, haunting reminder. In the architecture of our modern markets, we are only ever one bad line of code away from total disaster.